Denji finally learns the truth about Asa and Yoru being one and the same. And how does he respond? Well, we'll get to that in chapter 191 of Chainsaw Man, titled "Cause I'm a Devil." So let's go ahead and take things from the top as we begin with Yoshida saying, Segi, Katana Man, Haruka, and Nobana are being held as prisoners by public safety. However, he notes that Denji likely doesn't care about them. And, let's be frank. Yeah, I don't think he really cares about them at this point in the story. How much do you guys necessarily care about them in the story? There's a part of me that feels like I feel like they've done enough so far. Could they contribute more to the story? Possibly. Maybe there's one or two more things there, right? Specifically with Haruka, because he was the hardcore Chainsaw Man fan. He has the fake lever. There is still something there that could happen with Haruka. But, I am a little surprised that Katana Man is being held as a prisoner, because the last time we saw Katana Man, he was teaming up with Yoru to take down Chainsaw Man. So I don't know why public safety would detain him, considering he was on the side of public safety. And even though he's his own man and he wants his Yakuza organization to be brought back, right? Like, that's his end goal. He still wanted to get revenge on Denji or Chainsaw Man. He still wants to kill Chainsaw Man. So the one thing I want to mention too is Nobana. I think it would just be so hilarious now at the very end of part 2, or even this series, if we get a Chainsaw Man part 3, where Nobana has been through so much crazy shit. And because, Asian parents typically are just very strict on their kids, if the one thing we see out of all of this with Nobana having like some sort of normal life by the end of all of this is that, he goes to his parents and his parents are just ultimately disappointed in him, not for almost dying and not for almost being affiliated with all these crazy people, but because he went to prison twice. So we'll see what happens with that. I think that'd be pretty funny, but let's go ahead and continue on. Denji recounts what happened after discovering Nayata's severed head and losing consciousness. Asa defeated him and destroyed a significant part of Tokyo using the Statue of Liberty. So we get the confirmation from Denji. We get the confirmation from Yoshida later on in this chapter, but both of them are admitting, as Yoru has so much glee hearing it, the War Devil defeated Pochita. He was burned to cinders. If the aging devil didn't intervene, what would have happened between that battle? According to these guys, it looks like it would have been the end. I still think Pochita would have thought about something. Who knows? But I will not argue with anyone in the comment sections. If people want to take this and say this is a victory for the War Devil, hands down. But it is a little confusing how we learned in part 1 that Pochita had a stalemate between all 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse with the hybrids against him and the Gun Devil, and that was a stalemate. But in this situation, no, Pochita pretty much was down for the count. Now, again, we don't know how that played out, but if you still bring up the Death Devil was still a part of that battle and it was still a stalemate, hopefully we get some flashback to how that ended up panning out. Something tells me, just like the Jujutsu Kaisen fans, we're gonna get that Heian era flashback. I would love this as a Chainsaw Man fan to get the flashback of how Pochita fought against the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse to get some more context. Anyway, I digress. When Denji questions if there's anything normal about her, Yoru ends up bursting into laughter. She finally admits to being the War Devil and reveals that her host Asa is nearing a mental breakdown due to the number of lives she's taken. So here we go. We finally get the reveal. We've known this for the longest time, basically since part 2 has come out, and the way that Denji responded is fine, right? Like, oh my god, you're the War Devil? That's crazy. Oh my god. But did you wish there was just something a little bit more to it? Like, I wish there could have been something a little bit more and some immediate questions that he would have asked Yoru, as opposed to what he ended up asking later on, which that's the part I'm conflicted about. We'll get to that in a second. But Yoru does admit here that Asa is on the verge of a mental breakdown because she can't handle all of the debts that has accumulated thus far. And Asa has come a long way. And if there's anything I would still say about part 2 is that Asa is such a tragic character, and I really do feel for her. She's been through so much shit lately. And although she has developed this symbiotic relationship with Yoru, not because of her choice, but, you know, just accepted the situation that she's in. We've seen both of them kind of develop like a bond, right? Like and it's a good thing, right? Like you can tell Yoru still obviously cares for Asa, and like the way Yoru was boasting about like, haha, like I'm controlling Asa, and you know, she's on the verge of a mental breakdown. Like even if those things are true, it feels like she was gloating too much a little bit about it. Like, you know, deep down, like Yoru cares about Asa. So we'll see how that develops. I'm wondering if she just said this just to see how, you know, Yoshida and Denji would have reacted to it, but there we go. As Yoru gloats about having everyone under her control, Denji interrupts with a crude question, asking whether it was Asa or Yoru who gave him the Shinji hands. And, you know, Fujimoto did such a good job in this chapter specifically making Yoru look really pretty, where she simply responds, "Want to find out?" And she does that like cute little thing with her finger. It's like she looks very seductive, and when you're as bad as Denji is and Denji experienced something like that for the first time, I get why he gets down on his knees and then begins eating his own hand because the war devil is telling him to get another Shinji hands moment. Okay, I get it. There's a part of me where Denji regressing like that I am not a fan of, because we've seen in part 1 where this whole metaphor about being controlled, and Denji, you're being like my lapdog and you'll do anything for me, right? Like we know Denji suffered immense trauma following the events of Chainsaw Man part 1, and how we see some of that, you know, trickled into part 2, and it makes sense. So for now, Makima's sister, another horseman of the apocalypse, to say out loud in front of Denji, in front of everyone here, and after what Denji experienced in part 1, to say he's my dog, he's gonna be subservient to me, he's legitimately trying to eat his hand. And maybe it's funny because of like what happened with the previous arc with the aging devil and how people just use his mouth as a dimensional portal to go from one place to another, right? Like there's things I will say it's fine when you look at it from those lenses, you know, but simply for character development, where I am at personally, seeing what is happening with Denji kind of regress to him being like this ultimate simp, and he can be a simp. That's the thing. There's a lot of things I'm trying to be forgiving about, but when it just ultimately reverts to him getting down on his knees, you know, Yoru making this analogy of him being a subservient dog. Yoshida even says later on, like, Denji, just basically give yourself up, relinquish control so Yoru can turn you into a weapon, and then maybe we'll have a chance to beat the Death Devil. And Denji doesn't really do anything to fight it. It's a little upsetting. I'm very torn about this. I'm curious to know your thoughts about it. I know Fujimoto has his humor, and I believe there's a right time and a right place, and there's always weird, awkward things that happen basically in every chapter of Chainsaw Man, more so specifically in part 2 than part 1, but I'm not a fan of this. As I mentioned earlier, Yoru claims that Denji's already her pet, and she's just simply enjoying the game, but Yoshida urges her to hurry. He examines that the Death Devil's arrival is imminent, and the only hope of defeating her is to transform Denji into a mindless weapon. So this is what I mentioned earlier, where in part 1 we know that Pochita had a stalemate against the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and the hybrids. I don't know why Yoshida is still saying relinquish control, because, you know, you have to also wonder too, public safety is probably running out of a lot of bargaining chips too, because of just what happened in this previous arc, and it makes you question, and just still has me left wondering, who is this other secret organization Yoshida is working for? We know that he's working for a secret organization besides public safety, so I wonder if we're going to get the reveal of that here shortly. But anyway, Denji, still reeling from everything, asks if the destruction of his home and Naita's death were all part of his plan to turn him into a weapon. Yoshida doesn't respond. He only smirks, which I'm sure this would upset a lot of people, because again, you know, the only thing that we get in terms of confirmation is that, well, Naita is still dead. Do I think she's dead? Yes, but I still think she has to hang around for, you know, the many reasons I said before, right? Like if we have a final confrontation, we just can't have 3 horsemen of the apocalypse in this final battle, right? Like we just need all of them, because that's just going to be a cool moment, right? Like so, but this is where Yoshida offers him a deal, sliding his weapon towards him. If Denji agrees to be turned into a weapon, he can use this weapon to eliminate both Yoshida and Fumiko. Denji immediately tries to do so, but the weapon is unloaded. Yoshida taunts him, implying he hasn't forgiven them yet. Okay, come on. This was probably one of the best parts in this chapter, right? I like this. Denji has had enough. Despite the whole thing with the Asa and eating his hand, I like this moment. This is the character development I like, right? I don't give a shit about what you think. Here's this weapon you're offering me. Time to kick the can. And guess what? He actually fires and it's a blank. Bravo, Denji. Bravo. I love it. You love to see it. Don't really care about Yoshida at this point, but it's unloaded, of course, and Yoru comments on the manipulative nature of humans compared to the instinct-driven nature of devils. Spotting a waitress bringing their cake, Yoru suddenly grabs it and throws it in Yoshida's face. Denji protests against wasting food, but Yoru brushes it off, saying she can do whatever she likes because I'm a devil. They said it. They said the title. They said the thing. And before Yoshida can respond because he still has cake in his face, Yoru gets up and simply says bang to Yoshida. Is this the end of Yoshida? Yes or no? At this point, I don't really care for Yoshida. So if this is how he kicks the can, great. Something tells me that he's going to escape because this is just what we do in Chainsaw Man. It just in one panel, he can just summon the octopus devil or he can teleport away because he's also done that too. We'll see what happens with that. We got an exposition dump chapter. I like it. We actually got more than 14 pages this week. That's probably been the first time in a long time that we had something like that. So I will also commend Fujimoto on that front. However, although we don't necessarily get the reveal and the whereabouts of Naita, assuming she's dead, and again, if she's dead, that's fine, whatever, I am still a little hypercritical about the Fumiko bit. We ended the previous arc with Fumiko somehow having this clone. Somehow the real Fumiko gave her heart to Yoshida to give to the octopus devil to do what it did in chapter 189 or 190. And we don't really know what's happening with Fami either, right? Granted, Yoru ended up doing a lot of talking, which is fine. We get the reveal finally for Denji that Yoru and Asa are one and the same. That's fine with me. But it is just a little suspicious that Fami hasn't said anything at all about her plans. Let's give it another chapter or two before we fully judge it. But guys, I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. So if you guys want to see the live stream, go ahead and click on this video right here. Take care.